Benvenuti a un'altra puntata bellissima, è la puntata numero 12 di Solo punto esclamativo, ma è soprattutto la notte di Capo Horn. Questa notte i primi due passeranno Capo Horn, questa notte è una notte qualunque, la notte degli oceani, può capitare in qualunque giorno dell'anno, ma siamo all'antivigilia di Natale, è qualcosa di incredibile, ma soprattutto è abbastanza incredibile che sia una volata record tra Johan Richomme e Charlie Dallène a segnare questo momento iconico, questa fase importantissima, questo momento simbolico del Vendée Globe. Si lascia l'Oceano Pacifico, si entra nell'Oceano Atlantico, si torna in qualche modo addirittura a casa, secondo qualcuno, ma si fa in volata e si fa battendo i record, perché sia Johan Richomme sia Charlie Dallène sono ben sotto al record di Hermel Leclerc di tutta la regata, di tutto il Vendée Globe, quindi ci aspetta una risalita dell'Atlantico davvero entusiasmante. Questa è una puntata speciale, una puntata bella, una puntata anche di auguri, ci facciamo gli auguri di buon Natale, di buone feste, ma in questo periodo di fine anno si affolleranno altre puntate di Solo punto esclamativo, vedrete che avrete tante sorprese. Vi ricordiamo di iscrivervi alla pagina YouTube e di iscrivervi per ricevere la newsletter di Saily, ma vi dicevo è una puntata importante perché abbiamo un ospite importante, lo scoprirete tra poco dopo questa breve prolusione, questo breve prologo per capire cosa è successo nelle ultime 24-48 ore a questo incredibile giro del mondo in solitario. Giro del mondo in solitario che tutto sommato ci fa capire che poi così solitari non sono i nostri eroi, i nostri navigatori. Avete appena visto il leader della corsa, Johan Richomme, che sta preparando i festoni natalizi dentro alla cabina del suo Imoca 60. È incredibile. E adesso Charlie Dallène. Charlie Dallène, se ci avete fatto caso, ogni volta, ogni video l'abbiamo sempre visto in questa postura, chiuso dentro la cellula abitativa tutta nera di carbonio del suo Massif, con queste immagini rare dall'esterno, prese un po' dalla banca immagini del Vendée Globe, del suo Massif, della barca con cui sta lottando per la vittoria insieme a Johan Richomme e a Papa Arkea. Sono due grandi protagonisti, ma dietro di loro eroi, grandissimi navigatori oceanici della vela francese che stanno soffrendo. Jérémy Béjou era uno dei favoriti, il suo Charal qui racconta ancora la sofferenza di non riuscire a capire come ha accumulato questo distacco di quasi 1000 miglia. Thomas Royan, vulnerable, anche lui in grande ritardo. Qui è il Group Apicil invece, che è Damien Seguin, il velista parasailor. Lui non ha la mano, quindi non ha la mano sinistra, e racconta anche lui. Invece queste immagini di Sébastien Marcel le abbiamo messe perché Sébastien è uno delle retrovie, e nelle retrovie si fanno questi incontri incredibili, tra poco ne vedremo ancora altri. Nei giorni scorsi avevamo visto le immagini, anche in una puntata di Solo, di Charlie Dallène e Johan Richomme che si riprendevano a vicenda perché erano a mezzo miglio, a un miglio l'uno dall'altro, e sono tuttora. Adesso questa invece Romain Attanasio che ci fa vedere addirittura i delfini nel Pacifico, i delfini, cosa abbastanza, diciamo, rara, strana, non è capitata in passato. Vi dicevo che si vedevano altri incontri ravvicinati, e qui li stiamo vedendo. Li stiamo vedendo anche conditi da quello che è un po' il contorno, la bellezza, il respiro, la grandezza di queste onde oceaniche del Pacifico. Yannick Bestaven che si incontrava probabilmente con un altro concorrente, lo stesso Thomas Royan probabilmente, che qui racconta anche lui lo stesso tipo di sofferenza. Pensate che Thomas Royan è stato a lungo, per quasi 2 settimane, in testa al Vendée Globe ed è considerato tuttora uno dei papabili vincitori del giro del mondo in solitario. Avete visto la neve su Malizia Sea Explorer di Boris Herman, uno dei più continui nel mandare messaggi, uno dei più frequenti nel mandare messaggi. Eccolo qui ancora, la nevicata su Malizia Sea Explorer, con tutte le vele, i frulloni pronti per essere issati, per essere cambiati, ma già ci sono 2 vele che fanno avanzare in questo vento che perlomeno sembra un po' gentile, ecco, quindi fa freddo, ma perlomeno non ci sono 40, 50, 60, qualcuno ha raccontato 70, insomma davvero l'oceano non fa mancare la sua forza, però ormai si avvicina il Natale, e quindi chi se non Samantha Davis, che con il suo Initiative Care è veramente la più calda nel raccontare, nel farci vivere il Natale. Vi dicevo di un ospite illustre, è un ospite che riguarda il cantiere italiano Persico, che è il terzo cantiere per numero di barche costruite a questo Vendée Globe, è un cantiere italiano e quindi è un'eccellenza italiana ed era giusto sentire Mark Somerville, che è il direttore tecnico del cantiere, l'ha intervistato per noi Francesca Frazza.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Mark Somerville, which is the general manager at Persico Marine. Mark, are you following the Vendée Globe? First thing first.
Hey, Francesca. Yeah, I'm following it probably a few times a day. Yeah, it's hard to put it down, actually. It's always good to watch.
And keeping on refreshing the tracker?
Yeah, it's fantastic to watch. And actually, I don't know if, well, you know where they are today. So they're all actually going under New Zealand. So that's obviously where I was from. So it's always nice to see how they're tackling underneath Australia there and then underneath New Zealand. It's really cool. Really
So,
interesting to watch.
Persico Marine has 4 boats racing. How is this making you feel?
Yeah, it's really special actually. I think there's to have 10% of the boats in the fleet. It's really cool. And unfortunately, we lost a boat last year that sunk. So otherwise, we would have had five in the race. But four is pretty cool. And you know, they're kind of new generation to older generation. And then we have a mixture of foiling and non-foiling. So it's interesting to see, you know, how the older boats are doing versus new boats and foiling versus, you know, non-foiling. Yeah. No, it's really cool. It's exciting.
Can you talk me through the different, so you just mentioned it, we have 2 categories, main categories, and it's unofficial. We have foilers and we have non-foilers. What are the main differences in between these 2 boats, besides that obviously one has foils and the other one does not have foils? Even from like a challenging
Yeah,
perspective of building them.
so challenging building them, not too dissimilar to be honest with you. You know, there's a bit of different terminologies amongst all of the fleet anyway, with different designers and engineers. And you know, for us, we today we're building most of the boats actually with an ATL machine, which is an automatic tape laying machine, which we introduced here quite a few years ago. So our earlier boats are more done manually, and then the newer boats are a mixture of like ATL machine and manual. And then, of course, there's, you know, the differences whether you have some core in the bottom of the boat or you're like more monolithic solid skin with ribs today. So there's more and more of those boats. So I could say most of our boats today, or the later boats, are monolithic in the bottom with a rib structure, which is a bit more of a aeronautical approach, I guess, more like an aeroplane approach, which has relatively more complexity than chord boats that normally have, you know, an outer skin, a core, and then an inside skin. Having a monolithic structure with ribs takes a bit more time, a few more man hours, and more process steps along the way. So yeah, we're pretty happy with any different technology. They're all different, but they all have slightly different outcomes, and then weight distribution. And then, of course, you know, a non-foiler compared to a foiler, there's less parts to build, essentially, which is kind of good. A little bit less, you know, one less system in the boat. But, you know, the advantage of that to a non-foiler, if you can take the full advantage, is you're around 1 to 1.5 tons lighter than a boat that has foil. You don't need the foil itself, and you don't need to have the structure inside it. So, you know, essentially certain angles of sail, the non-foiler should go faster than the foiler, you know, and then obviously with reaching and more downwind sailing, and you can deploy the foils, it should be a lot faster, maybe that boat. Yeah. But, you know, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool having all the different technologies all being built at the same time and seeing them all. Yeah.
Sebastian Simon was kind of mentioning that, like something that you just said, that in the tricky seas, like the difference in between foiling and non-foiling, because he broke a foil, foiling and non-foiling is not that much. So now, like, I think the big difference that we're going to see now is maybe in the Pacific, where there's going to be bigger waves and more sort of surfable, rather than what we saw in the Indian Ocean, where it was like a little bit choppy, a little bit crazy with the depression. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think yeah, you're spot on there. We've seen him, let's say, break his starboard foil, and we could probably say today that it hasn't had a too bigger effect on the conditions, and obviously his speed and his position's still really good, you know. So I think in the last week there, when they were pretty fast south and they're going through the last sort of couple of depressions there, I'm sure you, Francesca, like me, were monitoring. You could see some of the wave state was quite nasty, really. Like they were between 4 and 6 meters waves. So I think having a foil or a non-foil doesn't make too much difference when you're just trying to manage that, and probably even depowering the boat as much as possible, really. Trying to, you know, just preserve the boat and look after it and not break things. So yeah, a bit disappointed he broke his, but yeah, we'll see when we get the bit better sea state and like longer wave patterns between the waves and a bit more downwind, then maybe the foilers really start to take off. But even today, there's quite a big separation between, you know, like the guys leading the front of the fleet, and then, you know, you can go back maybe 3,000 nautical miles and we've still got a mocha boat back there. So it feels like they're almost an ocean apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Dalen is one ocean apart compared to the last ones. The last ones are still basically in Cape Town, and he's already in the Pacific, heading Point Nemo. So you said, well, like the war down there, like in the Indian Ocean especially, is preserving the boats. And I feel like what most of the skippers says is when they went around Cape Agulhas and Cape Town, they were like, okay, now we have to get in one piece to Cape Horn. But
yeah, that's right.
Actually, from the bit from Brazil to Cape Town, especially the first ones like Dalen and Royan and Richom, they were pushing the boat really hard, and Sebastien Simon. And they reached speeds that we've never seen, like average 23 knots, and it wasn't happening with the old IMOCAs. What changed? How this IMOCA progressed, and how a shipyard has to keep pace with this progress? Is there anything new that you're doing?
I think everybody's doing their parts, to be honest, you know. I think you know, we're playing our parts, and we're really paying particular attention to the weight of the boats and the distribution of the weight, and, you know, and that side of it during the manufacturing phase. But even the design and engineering phase are doing their part, and then the sailors are also playing their part. So I think they're learning, you know, how to manage the boats and the waves, and they're also learning the balance, which is then something that we have to play a big part in, and so do the design engineers, getting the balance right. So you're not necessarily dragging the back of the boat around, and then you're not slamming the front, and they're really balancing with you. You know, we don't have the elevators on the rudders yet in this class. And so you can see that from the last generation to this generation, having that balance really well is just providing, I think, that little bit of extra distance they're getting each 24 hours and a bit more speed. Yeah. And, you know, slamming into waves or dragging too much, just minimizing that friction that spoilers should do, you know, at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think we're all playing this little increment that everyone's playing along the way. Yeah.
And
pretty cool though. Like the speed that they're getting is pretty amazing, and to think 10 years ago, even with a fully crewed Volvo boats and that, we weren't being able to produce this amount of, you know, nautical miles in 24 hours. It's just incredible to see people individually on a boat doing it. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, when they started from Les Sables d'Olonne, they were questioned because every round the world race, there is a record that gets beaten, obviously, because of the technological progression. And they were like, who will be able to beat the ocean race record, which was set in a crew, and it was 648, I believe. And then Sebastien Simon comes and he beats the record, and he's like solo, and you know, and it leaves you wondering how this, you know, progression is going on. And also like all the other sailors, they're really pushing hard, and Charlie Dallin and Johan Richon, like we see all these sailors pushing hard their boats. But speaking about the sailor, like what is the role of the sailor in designing the boat? Do you have direct contact with the navigators?
Yeah, some more than others, you know. And I think like honestly, to me, you know, I first got in contact with John LeCan many years ago when we started with him, and he's kind of, let's say, you know, he's the older generation, but man, you know, there's not many people I know like him, to be honest, or met him. We hit it off really quickly and got on like else on fire. And you know, he's involved, you know, with the design, the engineering, the functionality of the boat, every single corner of the boat he's involved in, and others not so much. You know, others more focused on certain areas and more. Maybe it's just more the design and functionality with the naval architect, and then you end up with John, who my mind sort of kings that approach. You know, if you go onto his boats, it doesn't matter if it's the hinge that let's say hold the bathroom door on, or a locker door. Anything is just being thought about, you know, more times than anything else, and then he's built it himself with his own hands. So it varies between team, and it varies a lot between the skippers for sure. Yeah, and I think there with John's approach, uh, it's just because of his generation where, you know, many years ago you would build the boats yourselves in the backyard, and then you would actually go yachting and sailing with it, and that's the only way that it could have been done back then. Where today the younger skippers are not used to that. You know, there's definitely more boats around and more funding around, and the skippers, you know, to be competitive need to focus on the sailing side of it more than the manufacturing and design. So yeah.
Did Jacques come a lot of time to see the boat while it was getting built?
Yeah, he was super enthusiastic about it. You know, he absolutely loved it. So yeah, he is coming here on a regular basis, probably once a month. And then, to be honest with you, the last couple of months he lived here, and he was engaged in the boat like anyone else. You know, it was really like hands on. It was really neat, actually. Yeah.
And so we mentioned the role of the skipper. Like some skippers are more involved than Eddie than others, and Jean. But and what is the role of the shipyard, and what makes a shipyard stand out from other shipyards? And basically, what makes Persico stand out in this case?
Yeah, I think you know, every shipyard has got their own approach. Yeah, I'm not so sure what a lot of the other ones do to a certain degree. You know, I know that with us we're very much an open book, so our doors are really open to everybody, and we do a great job of pulling everybody together. So you know, we kind of like that systems integrator. We take the design. Clearly, we're pretty good at building the boats and managing the schedule and the timing, and the weight is critical. Like and a mocker boat's no different to any other foiling boat, multi-hull. The lighter you can be, the faster you're going to be. So I think we cover that approach pretty well. We're quite international here. Look at me, you know, I live in Italy, but yeah, most of us speak English and other languages, and I think anyone that comes here actually has a pretty good experience through the building of the boat from the beginning to the end, and walks away with, let's say, a good taste of their mouth and having a good experience where, you know, building a boat quite challenging and it's quite stressful. So if you can take the stress away, or at least manage the stress, and put it into manufacturing the boat better and doing a good job and working as a team to do it, you end up with the best outcome at the end. So that's kind of how we try to drive it. Yeah.
So you just said that IMOCAs are not so much different to compared to other foiling boats, and at the same time, we saw some IMOCAs sustaining speeds like 28 knot average on some hours, like on 4 hours, which is ocean 50 speeds. It's not even IMOCAs anymore. It's like those speeds. Um, Coming out of Persico, last year there was a certain silver bullet, and I was wondering what are the main differences in between an AC-75 and IMOCAs, and if an IMOCA will ever reach those speeds? Like, are we going to see an IMOCA reaching, I don't know, 40 knot speeds?
Oh, no, I don't. I would definitely not want to bet on that. or bet against it, definitely say that the Amoca boats are one of the most open class boats we have. Definitely, we have to build the boats and design and engineer the boats around a set of rules, which in some ways is quite strict. So they actually could be opened up a lot more. We could be using more exotic materials and things like that, but obviously the budget goes sky high. But I think slowly but surely, I think we'll get to that number. I don't see why not. If you could see a Volvo 70 pushing the 35 to 40 knot range, then I don't see any reason why we're not going to see a Mocha boat get there. There might be slightly different configurations to what they are today. They might have an elevator on the rudder and things like that, and a few other tricks. But I think there's no reason why they won't get close to that 40, if not hit that number. Yeah.
Would the structure need to change much to what we see nowadays with the IMOCAs?
No, I think it just needs to continue along the path that we have seen in the last few Vendée Globes. Is a steady, gradual curve, and if the curve keeps going, we'll get there. And I think with the computational power that everyone's got at their fingertips today, the sharing of a lot of designs and engineering today, that curve just gets a little bit steeper all the time, actually. So we'll see. And we'll see when they update the rules, slowly but surely there'll be little increments on that. Obviously, there's non-foilers today, and there's a lot of old boats, and the success of the Mocha class at the end of the day is showing pretty strongly that there's 40 boats in this race, which is unbelievable and incredible. And there's other races globally around the world which are suffering today to stay on their feet. And we don't want to develop too quickly that we rule out the use of a lot of the older boats. I think that they've done a good job of trying to restrain too much change too quickly, because it just rolls out a lot of the older boats. So you need to grandfather them out, at a nice pace. And I think they've done a great job there. Yeah.
To slow it down. I have one last question for you. Since we're talking about the future, last question, and then I swear you're free to go. What's in the future of Persico? Do you have anything cooking right now?
We've got a few things in the oven cooking, and let's just say that the next boat is a foiling boat, and it's a boat it's a Persico 72-foot foiling boat. It's designed by Morelli Melvin. We call it the PB72, and you'll see that in spring 2025, so not that far away. So that's a fully foiling offshore racing catamaran that will be pushing the same sort of speeds as an Amoca boat, believe it or not. So yeah, it's going to be amazing, really. Yeah, very cool.
In 2025.
Yeah.
So it's soon to be launched.
Very soon. Very soon. Yeah.
Well, good luck with that, and thank you very much.
Thanks so much
for the time and for the interview.
Thanks, Francesco. I really appreciate it. It's always good to be here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.